Patten, please.
Thank you, Acting President, and I too am very pleased to rise to speak to the Human Tissue Amendment Bill 2020, and I noted as I was thinking about this bill that I had my Donate Life badge sitting on my desk today. So certainly, as Mr Talamas mentioned, donating your organs or your tissues can save not just one life, it can save a dozen lives. And over the course of just last year, nearly 1,500 Australians' lives were saved through a transplant due to the generosity of 500 or 600 people. So you can see how the gift really does give. And I know I'm an organ donor, and I've had that conversation with my family. In fact, all my family are all organ donors, and I vividly remember the Christmas Day lunch where we had this discussion while the turkey was being cut, and it was amusing, but it was also great to know that we were all on the same page, and that we all knew that if something was to happen to us, that we would all do whatever we could to ensure that the organs of my brothers and sisters, my mum and dad, would be donated. And that's what this bill does. And this bill just ensures, and in some ways it almost feels administrative, because it almost feels like, when I decided many years ago to become an organ donor, I never imagined that meant I hadn't consented to have a blood test prior to that, or I hadn't consented to, arrange, to have administration of antibiotics that might, or an anticoagulant, or some sort of X-ray or some sort of study to make sure that my organs were fit to be donated and fit for the next person who may use them. I don't think anyone imagined that wouldn't just be part of the process, and this is what's been discovered, that antemortem processes haven't necessarily been picked up in this. But what we do know is that the person has to have consented to being an organ donor, and we know that. And I don't think that I'm alone in being an organ donor and assuming that might have required some form of test of my organs prior to that process taking place. We know from the existing Act that this is not a process that is taken lightly. Now, this is a process that requires 2 medical practitioners already to provide, authorisation. Certainly, you'll have a medical decision maker there, and I think just coming in at the tail end of Mr. Medic's contribution, yes, those decision makers can overturn my decision, and that was the conversation we had. That's why you have those conversations with your families, to ensure that your decision is honoured by that medical decision maker. And that medical decision maker right now can say, well, Fiona might have wanted that, but I don't want that for whatever reasons, and they could deny that. This doesn't change that, and I think the community is ready to have that conversation about whether your organs are donated, unless you actively say, I don't want them to. I think that opt-out. I think we're at a point where we know the life-giving that organ donation has is something that we as a community are ready to accept and ready to take to that next level. And I know countries like Spain, which do have an opt-out process, they have a much larger number of organs donated each year. So by saying that someone's organs couldn't be donated because there wasn't a decision maker there to say that they consented to an antemortem test, I think denies the final wishes of that person, because what we know is that that person wanted their organs donated. And I don't think there is a person out there who has said, I want my organs donated, but I don't want a blood test before it. I want my organs donated, but I don't want you to provide any anticoagulant that might keep the organ alive for longer. I don't believe that there is anyone out there like that. And so I think that this is important legislation. We know that this is about the benefit of another individual. And the fact that there may have been some silence around ante-mortem testing should not deny the final wishes of a person who wanted their organs to be donated for the benefit of maybe not just one person, but of many people. I hope that in future, next year, we'll have a much more active and a much more public Donate Life Week. It's something that I've been involved in over the years, both here at Parliament and prior to my time here. I hope that this is something that we can further increase the numbers of organs that are donated, that we can reduce that really tragic wait list. And you hear of people who are just waiting by the phone and it's an awkward and awful thing when people tell you about waiting by the phone for someone to die, to be waiting there to receive a life-saving donation of lungs or of a heart or of tissue or of bone marrow. But to do that, there is the tragedy of somebody else having lost their life or other people having lost their loved ones. But on that note, I thank the Minister's office, because this did create, as the Acting President knows, this created quite some discussion in SARC when we were considering this legislation and its compatibility with the Charter of Human Rights. And I appreciate the very thoughtful correspondence that we received from the Minister's office on that, and I think it certainly allayed any fears that I had that this would be a breach of the Charter, and therefore I commend the bill.